I done got it out the mud, that's that shit that made it. That's that shit that made it. That's that shit that made it. I done got it out the mud, that's that shit that made it. That's that shit that made it. That's that shit that made it. I done got it out the mud, that's that shit that made it.
Alright, Hotep, greetings family. It's none other than your brother, Professor Ace, Sidon Patar, AfricanCreationEnergy.com. Checking in, man. It's been a minute. Been working, been grinding, but I attended a pretty good event this past weekend, August the 2nd, Sunday, August the 2nd, 2015. It was the Evolution Conference being held by Sonetta TV. I've been a subscriber to his different channels over the years, and they put on a number of events, and they were having a scientific discourse. So I was like, yeah, I gotta make that trip, man. So I flew up there to catch the Evolution Conference, and it was a good event. I just want to do a quick review of it. Talk about the good, talk about the bad, talk about the ugly, talk about, what I felt were the best moments, and, talk about some of my disappointments and what I like to see in the future. You know what I mean? So, for the good, those brothers, they put on a beautiful event. It was all peace. It was all love. You know what I mean? To see brothers get up and have a scientific conference geared towards, the average Joe, not something at a college or university, not something, that black people won't feel welcomed at. Like I go to a lot of scientific conferences. The astrophysicist Dr. Neil deGrasse Tyson actually spoke in Atlanta. I feel like it was March this year, March 2015, at the Fox Theater. And the tickets to go see him was $125. So just right off the rip, he priced the majority of our people from attending it. And I remember going to see Neil deGrasse Tyson speak at the Fox. I had mixed emotions. On one hand, it was a feeling of pride to see hundreds of people standing in line and migrating to go listen to this black astrophysicist speak. But on the other side of it, I was like, well, where are our people? There weren't that many black people actually going to hear Dr. Tyson speak. And it might just be because, it was priced, it was too expensive. So I was really happy that these brothers put on a scientific conference that was catering to our people. So I give them big ups for that, big ups for that. And it was all peace and love. It wasn't too much drama, Watching the debates, you see all those different personalities and characters, and I was thinking, oh shit, this might turn out to be one of these WWE Royal Rumbles. You know what I mean? When you get all the wrestlers in the ring and you lock them in the ring and all hell breaks loose. But no, it was peace. You know what I'm saying? It was a good mature event. People took their shots. But I think there was just enough of that. It was just enough of that to keep it entertaining and to keep it interesting. Another thing that I saw that, kind of made me proud was I saw some of the African creation energy information. I saw how it may have influenced some of the presenters. I don't know. Unless somebody actually says I was influenced by your work, you don't really know. You know what I mean? But there were little things like, Enqi was talking about Anansi the spider. He made a comparison between Anansi the spider and primer fields in space. And I did a video. I first did it back in 2010 about Anansi the spider and his relationship to the string theory, and I reposted it in January 2012. But it was just basically talking about Anansi the spider and string theory. So I was happy to see that that may have been influential piece of information that I put out there. Let's see what else. Ali Muhammad, he did the myth and math at the start of his discussion, which was coming out of the Supreme Mathematic African Math Magic book that I wrote back in 2009. And Asari Mohotep, he had Marcus Garvey's quote on science and technology. You know what I mean? That was something that came out of, or may have been inspired and influenced by one of the African creation energy videos. And the brother talking about the goddess Seshat. I remember when I wrote the Supreme Mathematic African Math Magic book back in 2009, nobody was talking about Seshat. Like, people talk about Mad and Sekhmet and Aset, but nobody was talking about Seshat. And when I actually found out about Seshat, I was shocked. I was like, whoa, you know what I'm saying? Jehudi had another wife, and she was Seshat, and she was a god of math and science also. And, I was probably one of the first people, if not the first person, to actually do an African depiction of Seshat, you know what I mean? And now here we are 6 years later, and, the goddess Seshat, the math goddess, the science goddess Seshat is getting getting her respect, you know what I mean? People are making African depictions of her, and I mean, that's big right there. So, you know, that I was happy to see that the African Creation Energy information may have been influential and impactful in this coming African scientific revolution, because that was my intention. The bad, you know, the bad was that the conference ran long, you know what I mean? The ticket that I bought said that it was going to run from 2 p.m. to 8 p.m. So I bought my plane ticket to leave at 10. I figured the event would end at 8. You know what I'm saying? I could chat and fraternize with the brothers for an hour and a half at the most, get back to LaGuardia, fly out at 10, and I'd be good. But, you know, the event was running long, it was running late, so 9 p.m. Enqi was just getting off the stage, and POLIGHT was about to go on, and I had to be out. So I could catch my flight. So I ended up not getting to see POLIGHT in person, but I'm happy that Sonetta did post the video, so I did get an opportunity to catch what he said. And then they separated it into 2 days, you know what I mean? They had all the individual presentations on one day, and then they had the round table or the panel discussion on a separate day. And I was looking forward to the panel discussion a little bit more so than I was looking forward to the individual presentations. But maybe that's something, you know, for future events, you know, they'll be able to encapsulate it all into one day so that, you know, people traveling from out of town can get everything, you know what I mean? Another point that I felt was bad, and I'm just bringing this up as bad because I want to point it out to my people. I want to point it out because if you don't know, then you can end up being disparaged by it unknowingly, right? So it's the point about the Neanderthals, right? So at this point in time, pretty much everybody knows that people of African descent don't share as much, if any, Neanderthal DNA with the other groups of people coming from Europe, people coming from Asia, etc. Right? So, you know, that point was something that was brought up over and over again in the conference. But you have to actually listen to the scientists who are having that dialogue and that conversation about Neanderthal DNA, because what happens after they say African people don't have Neanderthal DNA and all the other groups of people in the world do, then they go on to talk about how large the Neanderthal's head was, how large their brain was, and the implication is that because Africans don't have Neanderthal DNA and because these other groups of people do have Neanderthal DNA, that they're somehow smarter than us, right? So that's actually a point it's like a backhanded, disparaging remark almost. You know what I'm saying? Whether or not that point is true, because phrenology is not, you know, it might be one of those speculative sciences, but that is something that they attempt to imply with that Neanderthal point. Not our people, but, you know, when scientists bring it up, there is an implication about the intelligence of black people in saying that we don't have Neanderthal DNA when they bring that up. So that's the bad. The ugly. The ugly was Enqi's forensic those forensic reconstructions of the different species of genus Homo that Enqi was showing, and he showed a picture of like Homo erectus or Homo egaster, right? And it would be like an image of like this real dark skinned monkey looking person, a creature with straight hair, and then Enqi would be like, that looks like your auntie, that looks like your uncle. That was the ugly, man. And then he went on to show pictures of Khoisan people, and he talked about, and they, you know, how they're light-skinned people with the oldest DNA on the planet. And so, you know, my biggest question is like, okay, so with the forensic pictures, how do they know what the hair texture was? How do they know what the skin color was? And if the oldest people on the planet were light-skinned blacks, then why don't they do all of those forensic reconstructions of those different genus Homos? Why don't they make them light brown people, like the people with the oldest DNA on the planet? Why are they making them as dark as possible, right? That's just something that makes me think that there's some intent or some racism interjected into it. I don't think it was Enqi's intention, you know what I'm saying? I think that intention is more so on the people who created those images in terms of, you know, what they're trying to imply. If the people with the oldest DNA on the planet are light brown skinned people, then the pictures and representations of the various genus Homos that came before Homo sapien should also be light brown skinned people, right? So yeah, the best of the conference, man. Divine Mastermind, I think his name, Divine Mastermind Allah, was the crowd favorite by far. I mean, when he the way he spoke, you know what I'm saying? I'm not saying that he made the best points, but in terms of being a crowd favorite, when he got off the stage, he got a standing ovation from everybody there. And the crowd just roared, you know what I mean? So he was the crowd, he was the people's champ. He even had a cape on. That was funny. He had a cape on, man. He was the people's champ. I feel like the most important points in the whole conference came from two people. And this is just my opinion. It came from Enqi, and it was a backhanded attempt by Bashir to, try to be insulting, but it was actually a very impactful point. He showed the phylogenetic tree, which is important, and then he talked about the percentage of DNA that human beings shared with all living organisms on the planet, from single-cell organisms to multi-cell organisms to plants to animals, etc. He showed the percentage of DNA that they all share. Right, that right there. That piece of information is extremely important. You share DNA with these living things, which imply, and that's something that you can observe right now. You may not be able to observe evolution right now, but you can observe the fact that you share DNA with other living things right now. And so that right there, if it doesn't prove evolution, it certainly implies evolution, right? So that was a very powerful point. You know what I mean? Ain't no way around that point, really. But Bashir's comment, he was like, they're trying to tell us that these plants and these animals are our ancestors. So what does that mean? The next time we're pouring libations, are we supposed to start pouring out libations to the trees? Are we supposed to start pouring out libations to insects? Are we supposed to start pouring out libations to the fish and to single-cell bacteria, et cetera, et cetera? And I was like, hell yeah, because they're your ancestors. If you're going to be a part of a community where you say, I honor my ancestors, right? Goddamn, honor all of your damn ancestors, not just your human ancestors, man. Honor all of them. Pour a libation to all of them. So, I mean, he was trying to be funny, but damn it, that's an extremely important point. So in terms of like the best, so Divine Mastermind was a crowd favorite. The most important points I feel came from Enqi and Bashir. I feel Asar Imhotep's presentation was the most thorough in terms of addressing all the topics: evolution, creation, science, mythology, and who and what is God. He addressed all of those topics, and he was coherent and thorough in his approach. I feel like he had the most solid presentation. It was heavy on information and light on theatrics and entertainment. You know what I'm saying? My only criticism of Asar is that at times it kind of sounded like he was talking down to the people. You know what I mean? There was even a person sitting behind me, and they said he sounds stuck up or something like that. You know what I mean? And then there were other presenters got up and they touched on portions of creation and the God concept and science, mythology, and why they disagree with evolution. But I feel as if their presentations were not as thorough or as coherent. You know, that's going to lead me into my disappointments. You know what I mean? Because one of my disappointments in the conference was that, okay, people talked about why they disagree with evolution, right? But they never gave a coherent proposal of how they think or feel or know or hypothesize or theorize how things went from the beginning to now. They never did that. They just talked about why they disagreed with evolution. For me, I feel like that's very disappointing. Enqi was one of those people who disagree with evolution. One of the questions I have for Enqi, he was like, he said, your body rejects cow milk because it's foreign DNA. And then he goes on to talk about how your body accepts vegetation. But vegetation also has DNA. So if vegetation DNA is not foreign to your body, then does that imply that you share DNA with vegetation? And if you share DNA with vegetation, doesn't that imply a common ancestor between you and vegetation? And doesn't that imply evolution? Right? They're gonna say horizontal gene transfer. But what else? Bashir, every time I saw a video with him talking on Sonetta TV, and then even at the conference, he's always saying humans come from apes, humans come from monkeys. And every time he says that, like, I hold my head and I start shaking my head, because it's like, bruh, if we were having a religious discourse, a religious conversation, and I kept on saying, Ishmael comes from Isaac, and Isaac comes from Ishmael, Ishmael comes from Isaac, Isaac comes from Ishmael, a person who is knowledgeable in their scriptures, they would stop me in my tracks, and they'd be like, bruh, they don't come from each other. They were brothers, and they came from Abraham. right? They share a common ancestors. They don't come from one another. But it's like it's a basic misunderstanding of evolution that will have you saying people come from monkeys. People come from because then the next part says people come from monkeys. Then why are there people and monkeys at the same time? Bruh, you sound as misinformed as I would if I said Isaac came from Ishmael. And so yeah, that was frustrating, man. What else? Ali Muhammad's theory of evolution was wild. He said there were black people that they just popped up. Black people just were formed. And those black people turned into apes and monkeys. And then those apes and monkeys evolved into white people. That was Ali Muhammad's theory of evolution. Ali Muhammad also talked about how Allah is a light. Allah is the Nur Samawati wa Allah. Allah is light. But then he went on to talk about how Allah is the black hole at the galactic core controlling everything. So Allah is light and Allah is a black hole, right? So that's a conflicting concept unless he's trying to say that Allah is Hawking radiation. Because Hawking radiation is the type of light that black holes emit. So I guess Ali Muhammad feels that Allah is Hawking radiation. Okay. And so all these people, you know, who disagree with the theory of evolution, they all pretty much, you know, they basically just say that, you know, people just showed up fully formed, no development, no transitions. We just showed up fully formed. You know what I mean? You know, these different people, man, they all teach, you know, what I call Cabbage Patch Kid theory. You know, the Cabbage Patch Kids, they just said that the babies just popped up out the ground. You know what I mean? They showed up fully formed. They showed up like they woke up like that, fully formed. You know what I'm saying? No development, no transition. Cabbage Patch Kids theory. They not butt dancing, they cabbage patching. You know what I'm saying? But that horizontal gene transfer, man, that was the most disappointing point that people were trying to make. So we shared 98% of our DNA with apes. So their way of explaining that is, no, we didn't descend from a common ancestor of the apes. It's because we share the same environment and breathe the same air. That's how we get the same. This is how we get 98% of the same DNA. And so and that's called horizontal gene transfer. Right? First and foremost, horizontal gene transfer only can take place amongst bacteria, viruses, and single cell organisms. That's number one. So now what's going to happen, you know what I'm saying? Brother's going to be on Maury Povich. They're going to do the DNA test. They're going to say, in the case of baby LaQuisha, you share 99.9% DNA. You are the father. And the brother going to be like, nope, it was horizontal gene transfer because we live in the same house. We breathe the same air. That's how she got my DNA. I'm not the father. Come on, man. Y'all already know, man. That's some nonsense, bruh. And that was one of the most disappointing points that I kept hearing being brought up. And it doesn't hold water. You know, the only part of the idea that black people share a separate evolution from all the other creatures on the planet is the kinky hair, man. Like that's the part that troubles me with the theory of evolution as it relates to us. Like no other animal or human being on this planet has this kinky hair that black people have, this level of kinky hair that black people have. No other animal or human being. You know what I mean? And it's like, okay, I've seen extremely curly that you find like on white people or, you know, some Middle Eastern or Mediterranean people, and you find that same kind of curly hair like on lambs and some dogs. But I'm talking about this kinky nap that black people have that seems to have evolved only in us, which implies like there may be a separate line. So until, you know, I can get the mystery of the kinky hair solved, you know what I mean? I don't want to completely disparage people who present ideas that black people had a separate line of evolution, but I mean, there obviously had to be some similarity between us and other species because we do share DNA. But, you know, the mystery, the kinky hair still remains a mystery as it relates to evolution to me. Let's see, what else, man? Disappointing, yeah, the pseudo conversation, you know what I mean? So, you know, KT, he brought up a good point about natural philosophy being the origin of science. Before modern scientists were called scientists and what they were doing was called science, they were all natural philosophers. And natural philosophers included people like Plato, Aristotle, Isaac Newton, Pythagoras, Galileo, and all of these people, while they are respected as scientists, they still dabbled in concepts of astrology, numerology, alchemy, and metaphysics. All of those subjects, all of those speculative subjects that you would qualify as pseudoscience. But the modern scientists now, they don't make disparaging remarks about Isaac Newton. They don't make disparaging remarks about Pythagoras. They don't call Galileo a pseudo or a pseudoscientist, right? They uphold them. You know what I'm saying? And it's disappointing to see, because, I mean, our people are developing, and it's disappointing to see one person disparage another brother saying, okay, his work is pseudoscience, when your white contemporaries aren't even doing that, right? They don't disparage Isaac Newton. They don't disparage Pythagoras, who, as much as he was a mathematician, he was also a numerologist. You know what I'm saying? You don't get that. They uphold them. And so I think for, you know, the various people in our communities that have taught those speculative scientists, while I do agree that our conscious community is over inundated with speculative sciences like metaphysics and alchemy and numerology and astrology, I don't feel it necessary to, you know, name call, demean, or put down those people. You know, I acknowledge them for what they were. They were into that, and a lot of the modern science grew out of those ideas. And I feel like it's the responsibility of our generation to take those ideas that those speculative scientists put forward, and as much as possible, turn them into something operative. And anything that you can't turn into operative, just put to the side and just hold. If they said something that was half right, just keep the right and throw away the wrong. You know what I mean? But another thing that I was disappointed with was the fact that they didn't discuss where are we going, right? Like, part of evolution is, okay, where we come from, and then, like, is this the end? Like, have we reached our pinnacle, or is there a next step in our development? And to have that discussion, that transhumanist discussion, that next point in the human evolution, that would have been an interesting discussion to have. So I was a bit disappointed that they didn't have that dialogue. That's my take on things that I was disappointed with. Future expectations and implications, man. I mean, you know, they started something. I hope that they continue at least one scientific conference or debate per year. They did mention that they might do an Enqi versus Ali Muhammad debate, which, you know, I think that would be just straight science. They might go into a little bit of religion, but it's not going to be like religious concepts versus science concepts. I think they're going to try to do like scientific concepts versus scientific concepts. So, you know, that's promising. And, you know, try to do at least one scientific debate per year. In terms of future expectations, you know, it seems like everybody has little pieces of doing or making a comparative analysis between our ancient African mythologies and stories to modern science. And what I'd like to see come out of this body of work is a corpus of text describing different scientific principles using African symbology. So we'll have books on physics, chemistry, biology, geology, but instead of having to make reference to Greek and Roman and European scientists, concepts, and ideas, we can make reference to our different African stories and mythology. So that, you know, that's the great work that our generation has to take up. You know what I mean? And, you know, I've already tried to get the ball rolling with the African creation energy books. You know, I've done that with electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, thermodynamics, robotics, computer science, architecture, and aeronautics. All those 7 of those African creation energy books teach those scientific principles using African symbology and African mythology. So that's the great work for our generation. And as we become operative scientists on the frontier of making new discoveries, man, eventually we're going to get to a point where we start discovering things where we won't be able to make reference to our African mythologies. We won't be able to make reference to our African stories, and we'll have to create new explanations. We'll be on the forefront. We'll be on the frontier of discovery. You know what I'm saying? At that point, we'll be creators. You know what I'm saying? We can't always just lean on our ancestors. We have to do something new. You know what I'm saying? So, man, I want to end this video by pouring libation in honor of all of my ancestors. You know what I'm saying? To the bacteria, ashe. To the viruses, ashe. To the single-cell organisms, ashe. To the multi-cell organisms, ashe. To the plants and vegetation, ashe. All animals of the land, water, and air, ashe. And all our human ancestors which we honor, which brought us to this point. You know what I mean? That's what made us. So, Hotep, peace.
That's that shit that made it. That's that shit that made me. I done got it out the mud. That's that shit that made me. That's that shit that made me. That's that shit that made me. I done got it out the mud. That's that shit that made me.